There are very few works of a entertainment medium that are specifically designed for it to only work in its original origin. It's specifically made in this format, and as a result, it can't be translated in any other way. That is what Shadow of the Colossus is. It is the best examples of showing how video games can achieve as an art form in a way no other medium can capture. Now, this isn't the only great achievement in video games, far from it, but I believe it's the best in translating that message to everyone outside the video game sphere. It's the reason why it has a special place in gaming history, which has then led it to being remastered twice for newer hardware of the time. This is due to Shadow of the Colossus having such a major impact on gaming culture and gamers who experience it. I'll go now in depth on what makes this game a classic and how its design is masterfully crafted, despite offering very little on paper. More specifically, I'm talking about its simplicity as its greatest strength. Now, the main premise of Shadow of the Colossus is centered around your protagonist, the Wanderer. He is a young man who is journeying to this forbidden land to make a plea to an all-powerful spirit. That plea is for the resurrection of his possible girlfriend. It is not fully stated. And he is willing to do this by any means necessary.
It's not ours, amusement. I will declick if it leads to either.
我从此一直我有了 Eureka is I'm too cool. You will conceal and we no cool. You are the no you do. Oh, you curse.
Uranora.
Reason could come around you. You are a Ecuador.
Oil. I'll bet.
I was difficult. No certain kiss, no cuddle. On those around us, I worry could you do. Error was no source, a one a do. Error to do, no.
You do. You bet, Sanada.
Cool. I won't do. Was no source. Oh, you know, you are there, cry of sound. Was you are there, or become Zula, Mukira Jura. No source, you are your hands, can do no code.
Oram.
You are the was no widow, you will yellow. Or you are our street.
Ola. You do new.
No cooler.
Eventually, the equivalent of cops come to ruin the fun, but we'll go over that later as they have no real effect on the game except in the ending cutscene. The game doesn't give you any other form of backstory in order to keep it simple. It doesn't wish to ask questions, that it will never bother to explain anyway, so why bother? Which avoids confusion. Plot-wise, it nails the necessary traits needed for a functioning story. You have the goal that everyone can relate to, a protagonist to root for, and a visible representation of the challenges you will have to face. This allows anyone to instantly get immersed into the game with no difficulty, while at the same time offering the bare essentials of storytelling. Additionally, the story is not overly complex, so that now the remainder of the story can be told through gameplay alone, uninterrupted. The story acts as the skeleton, as it should, and allows the gameplay to be the meat of the experience. A strategy that makes it nearly impossible for a full, complete, unaltered adaptation to succeed. It can only exist as a video game. As the player, you must overcome 16 different challenges, or as the game refers to them as Colossus. You have to kill it with only your sword, but you also have a bow or horse, and a climbing mechanic, as well as a form of looking for your next target, making your sword have a second use. And that's it. You must use these tools to overcome each challenge, with the only consistency is that the sword stabbed at the glowing weak points is the only way to kill them. It's not the amount of items at your disposal that is the focus. The game instead focuses on how you use them. This consistency allows the player to be more comfortable and connect with the protagonist instead of having the usual get a new weapon to change up the system mentality. This strategy is common, but it slightly alienates the player, as they have to fully relearn gameplay in order to effectively play the game with all their new assets together. It's almost like restricting somebody of their senses and then giving them back one at a time. There's going to be some sort of disorientated feeling, which is why many games usually have just this nice, easy battle section where you can just use the tools to get acquainted with it before they finally put you back on course. Sure, it opens up and gives the player more flexibility, but it involves a period of alienation. Like I said, usually they have a practice session before they steal you back into the mainline game. Now, with Shadow of the Colossus, it avoids this problem altogether by instead asking the player to think of a tool in a different way, instead of outright giving you a new tool. It's the same effect, but without the alienation. This design shows a high level of ingenuity in pre-planning. It allows the game to have a bigger impact on the player, forcing them to expand their mind or to find the special method to take down each Colossus. Forcing the player to figure out each method allows the player to be more invested into the experience, which then leads to a lasting impression on all those who experience Shadow of the Colossus. In the video game community, the term of gameplay loop is used commonly in order to eventually lead to the answer to the question, what the hell is the point? This question also translates to other forms of entertainment. Movies and television, in my opinion, are the closest cousins to video games. So to keep it simple, I'm gonna go apply the equivalent question of why are you watching this? In terms of movies and television. The answer can vary depending on the product. You watch a Nicholas Sparks film to see two individuals grow a bond that increasingly strengthens over time. You watch a comedy for the next joke delivery, not a political lecture. You watch an action-adventure movie or television series for the hero's evolution through trials and tribulations, not for the next visual spectacle that makes for good wallpaper. In video games, you play for the next personal reward set up by the game itself. In the case of Shadow of the Colossus, you play for two specific feelings: triumph and discovery. At the start, you are given a synopsis of the next Colossus. It is then up to the player to locate and find the Colossus. There is no music. The mood is completely calm, in order to offer a greater contrast to when you actually find the Colossus. And when that happens, the music actually turns back on. The journey involves you going through scenery, which cleverly offers a natural transition from the journey to the actual arena. I'm just running through a field usually, but then I actually find some scenery to actually climb over and stuff. That's usually when it means that you have gotten near to the actual battle arena. In some cases, it will lead to you leaving your horse behind, as right here, organically limiting your tours when it wants you to in order for its intended design, instead of forcibly telling you to. I previously mentioned one of the payoffs in the game is feeling of discovery, and that is offered through a triggering of a cutscene. It's a clear indication of when it's time to stop searching and that it's time to start fighting. In actuality, fighting the Colossus is pretty inaccurate. Solving the Colossus is more appropriate, because this is treated more like a puzzle, a giant monster type puzzle. You must use your environment and tendencies of the Colossus itself in order to get to the growing weak points. And when I mean tendencies, I mean shoot at it in a specific point and get it to do what you want in order to hopefully jump on it. Each solution is different for each Colossus, allowing for a greater variety and to keep it from getting stale. As some rely more on a weak point, but then others rely more on the environment, or some rely more on you having to bait them into doing something. Additionally, the Colossus is trying to shake you off from its body, to add even more of a challenge. To avoid confusion, the pleasant music changes in order to indicate you found the solution to actually climb up onto him. Thus going well with the actual act of killing the Colossus. Every time you deliver the final blow, there is a sudden pause, thus transitioning to a cutscene showing the Colossus fall in defeat. The process then starts over again. But now you have the feeling of triumph over a difficult task, which then compels you to restart the experience all over again. Hence, when I mentioned the feeling of triumph. This feeling is cemented by the change you have caused in the world you inhabit. The statue is destroyed. A light to the heaven can be seen from its resting place as well. You can also visit the Colossus itself, becoming one with the environment, actually. Just to make sure you don't forget, you are spawned right in front of your maiden, reminding you why you are here and your ultimate goal. Referring back to video games' closest cousin, movies and television, we have all heard of the complaints about the CGI looks fake despite millions of dollars being put into the project. In some cases, I believe it's due to the rubber nature of some of the creatures. I'm referring to how a giant creature can move so fast when that isn't the case at all in real life. Shadow of the Colossus does understand that large creatures move slowly. There is a difficulty in moving their giant bodies and aren't moving faster than the protagonist. You can see that they borrowed a lot of behavior expected from actual animals, despite some of the creatures having lasers. Yeah, fuck that one. When working on a project and you have the money to invest into a personal composer or the money to buy the license for a couple of songs, remember this. Have a song for every mood and moment. Shadow of the Colossus has music for everything. from the thrill of the fight and the Wanderer transitioning during the blackout sequence, and music when looking over the deceased maiden. I can't emphasize enough how the music directs how you are supposed to feel in that current situation. It helps clear out some stuff for any audience members or, in this case, the player itself. And it's seriously something that should never be underappreciated, as many new products of entertainment kind of resort to, the bad soundtrack or some mainstream popular song of the month. Let's just also point out that it helps any product stand out to the public. The actual ending of the game is actually non-playable, and left as a cutscene. In actuality, it's not so polarizing. The game opens with a cutscene for the first couple minutes, and thus ends with a couple minute long cutscene. Unfortunately, the priest does a fancy trick with your sword, and now the spirit is being sent to hell. Strangely, the game gives you back control of the protagonist just so you can relate to his struggle to grabbing onto the stairs as he is trying to avoid being pulled into the portal. But it is useless. And you feel it as you slowly lose all your stamina and are then dragged into the portal. Nevertheless, the spirit came through and kept its end of the bargain by reviving your maiden. Now, despite this desert being a perfect representation of how barren my heart is, by God, I cried. Especially when Arrow is walking up here. God, I love that horse. Oh yeah, the protagonist is reborn as a baby with horns. It's just a clever connection to the teams that made this game, their other game, Ico, and saying they are part of the same universe. But God damn it, they kept the horse alive. Thank God. Today's society is quite familiar with reboots, continuations, and sequels masquerading as cinematic universes as a clever way to hide the abundance of sequels, even to this day, and how they are not exempt from it. Anyways, gaming has the equivalent, and we call one of them, in particular, remasters, on top of the typical sequels and some soft reboots. This version of Shadow of Colossus is the second remaster. The original game is released on the PS2 in 2005, which, from reports to be accurate, was pretty much shit because it was bad programming. The game didn't feel very well, the frame rate was awful. Let's just say it wasn't a good experience. It had to demand a lot of tolerance just on the technical side. The faults. Now, the first remaster is released on the PS3 in 2011 and is the version I played originally. Yes, this version I am doing right now is the second time I have played this. Now, that version actually runs pretty well, and I have fond memories of that experience. However, I fully recommend the version on the PS4, and if you have the money, just get the PS4 Pro. This game is drop dead gorgeous, and it's the best way to experience this game. And this is me setting it to performance rather than visual. If you don't know, there is an option to prioritize the performance so it feels better to play, or set it to better visuals, allowing you to play the game in 4K resolution, if you have the TV that supports 4K resolution. So the gameplay you have been seeing all this time isn't even at its final form visually. Nothing is lost from this version to previous versions. In fact, it seems to add more to the experience. The older version tends to do some shortcuts in order to save on modeling and animations. You can tell that there were some limitations at the time. Now, that's not a problem anymore. In the case of movies and TV, there runs the risk of the new cast being boring and the lighting being worse, but all of that is preserved in a video game. And thus, the actual visuals and performance can be improved without the setbacks of what I just mentioned with movies and television. Basically, my point is that video games can gain the perks of having a brand new version or a reboot, or in our case, what we call a remaster for video games terms, without the problems that its cousin has to deal with. Shadow of the Colossus has a special place in gaming history, and this game cannot be overlooked when it comes to the discussion of what gaming is. Personally, I hope the video gives this game justice, and those outside of the gaming community can understand just how impressive this game is, and how much this game stands as art, as many other forms of media have. I hope you will still stay to see further analysis of other games that I do, that I will go over, and possibly some of video games cousins, movies and television. Like I say, they are pretty much that. So, thank you for watching, and I hope this game is given the justice it deserves from this video. Thank you.